right, welcome back to the Spiritual Warrior. Our warrior this week is Wally. Say hi, Wally.
Hello.
We're going to get to him in just a second. If this is your first time watching the show, I want you to go to spiritualwarfareunit.com, and we have a struggling section on there. And if you don't have a family member or a friend, or you yourself are struggling and you need help with food or clothes or baby formula or baby food, you click down there, and one of our groups you call, they'll set up an appointment to help you out. And to become part of the Spiritual Warfare Unit Army, your job is to make sure that you help one person with the information that you find, so you're the vision of hope for that person. All right. Wally, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing really well.
All right. So Wally is a friend of mine. He is a chaplain from Lapeer County Jail for Reach the Forgotten. So how long have you been working for them?
Almost 15 months now.
All right. What do you think, bud?
I love it.
Yeah, that's good stuff, right?
It's a great ministry.
All right, so I wanted to bring Wally in because Wally's got a cool story, and Wally's one of those guys that kind of did things the right way most of the time, and I know you laugh, but the story's cool. So I want to get into it. So tell everybody where you're from originally.
I was born and raised in Flushing, which is just outside of Flint, so I consider Flint my town because whenever we did anything, we went into Flint.
Yeah, right. Okay, and what year were you born?
1971.
1971. Wow, so you're a young chicken still.
Only you think that.
Whoa.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody else in my life thinks that 1970.
Right. So did you go to Flushing High School? Or
I did for a minute. We started going to a church in Flushing, and they were associated with Genesee Christian High School. Mm-hmm. So in my freshman year, I became good friends with a fella from the youth group, and he was going to Genesee Christian. So I transferred to Genesee Christian in the middle of my freshman year.
All right, and did you like parochial school? Like, did you like it?
I did.
Yeah.
You know, it was a small pond.
Now, were you a troublemaker, or were you...
So that friend of mine, who's now a missionary in Tanzania, him and we were asked to stop studying at our Christian school.
Really? They didn't like you reading books, huh?
So I went back to Flushing in the middle of my junior year and stayed there through my junior year. He was a senior, so he was done with high school. But yeah, I did enjoy it. Matter of fact, I've got lasting relationships to this day with.
So were you a troublemaker in high school? Were you a cool kid? Were you a nerd? Like, what was your kind of?
I'd like to think I was a cool kid, but I'm sure I wasn't. You know what? When I went back to Flushing, here's what I was. I was a semi-athlete that could run in all circles. Like,
gotcha.
In those days, we had nerds, we had yuppies, we had burnouts, and we had jocks. And I was probably more in the jock category, but I hung out with people in every category.
Well, you look jockish, I must say.
I appreciate that.
Hey, no problem.
I appreciate that.
So I was actually a sports guy to soccer. I did soccer. So that was many pounds ago.
I relate.
So let's see. So you were born in 71, and you graduated from Flushing then?
I graduated from Genesee Christian. I went back.
So you went back?
I went back.
Wow. You were that bad, or you decided to make that good of a decision? Which way did that go?
I had a really good relationship with the principal at Genesee Christian. His last name happened to be Rose. Mm-hmm. He was no relation to me. But that guy, my senior year, almost every lunch period would go down to his office, and we didn't have to talk about anything in particular. Most of the time we talked about the Lions. Barry Sanders was on the team back then, or the Pistons. And that guy just kind of poured into my life.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Wow. All right. So what year did you graduate?
1990.
1990. Wow. All right. So at 1990, did you go directly into like college, or did you go spend some time abroad? Like, what was the next step?
I went to college. Yeah. The guys on the church staff where I was from had all gone to a little Bible college in Wisconsin called Maranatha.
All right. So, hold on, where's that at?
Watertown, Wisconsin, which is almost directly between Madison and Milwaukee.
Okay.
Right off of 94. And
so it's in nowhere.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when I finally left there, we finally got a Taco Bell. I mean, we had nothing.
Like, that was a big deal?
Yeah, it was a huge deal.
Wow. Okay, Is the cheese as good as they say?
100%.
It is?
100%.
Wow.
But the problem is it's so windy, and we have the same weather, only the wind is blowing 10 miles per hour more every day in Wisconsin.
No kidding.
I don't know why.
And it's freezing, right?
It is.
Like, how long is winter there?
Well, I mean, winter's 10 months in Michigan. It's about 10 months in Wisconsin.
About 10
as well.
months?
Yeah.
So it goes from winter to summer for July and August,
Yep.
and then September comes. And
Same. Exactly the
ugh.
same.
It sounds so. All right, so you go there directly after high school. So you're 18.
Yep.
All right. Did you go straight through?
Nope. They also asked me to stop studying for a little while.
Stop studying.
There's a pattern
Yeah.
that has developed.
So you had you had a bit of a wild side to you then.
I had a rebellious side.
Oh, the authority
I
thing.
struggled with authority. And I still have a great dad who taught me well and taught me what authority was. But if somebody drew the line in the sand, for whatever reason, I always struggled.
You were like, hold my Coke.
Yep, exactly. It's exactly what I was like.
Let's just see how far this line is.
And usually authority wins.
Yeah, that is how that works.
Yes.
You know what's funny is if it wasn't for my push when the doctor said you're not capable, this is the things that are impossible to you. Like God made me that way. I was the same as you. I'm like, really? So you're saying like no, or I shouldn't?
Right, exactly.
And if it's I shouldn't, that means I can. And if I can, what's the outcome?
And if you're saying no, that means I really should.
And I knew I was this way when I was a little kid, right? So me and my friends used to, when the kids still played outside, right?
Yep.
We would go play capture the flag, right? So my friends would come out 10 o'clock. You sneak out, go to the park, play capture the flag, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, sneak back in, go to sleep. No big deal. Weren't causing problems, weren't breaking anything, right? My dad somehow found out, and he's like, if you do that one more time, you're getting 3 swats. So I'm like, 3 swats for 5 hours. That comes out to swat and a half an hour.
That's good math for you.
I'm like, that money works for me.
That's great.
Right?
Yes.
And so I was like, yeah, I'm totally doing it. And he, oh, no, Dad, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, all right, next. And he couldn't figure it out. So then when the ratio started to heighten, and we're talking 5 to 7 range, and then the ratio wasn't cool. And for me, it was the beating was never the reason. Getting in trouble was never a reason not to. I was just curious if I could.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
I didn't do it to be mischievous. I just want to see if I could pull it off.
There were just things looking back now that I wanted to do, whether somebody wiser than me or somebody who had my back wanted me or not wanted me to do them. I wanted to do them.
Yeah.
So I did them.
Yeah, I was the same way. So any big experiences in college? So you were there 90 to 94?
Well, I had a
timeout?
I had a timeout. But I had a bigger experience going back to high school when I was in Flushing.
Okay.
In that freshman year, I broke a couple vertebrae in my neck playing football. And my life's goal was going to be to play football. Now,
yeah, you would have been a kicker.
Yeah, clearly looking at me, I wouldn't have been big enough to do that.
Yeah. But hey,
At the level I wanted to. But
Right.
that started me down a path like having conversations with God. Like, why would this happen to me?
Yeah.
And then in high school at Genesee Christian, basketball became my love.
Yeah.
And I blew my knee out. And I could still play at that level. But now I've had 2 things that I thought I loved taken from me.
Yeah.
And I could see God just kind of working in all of that and getting me to the point where I would be willing to go to a Bible college, which was a very foreign thought to me to begin with.
Yeah.
And to study for ministry, because that's what I went there for, was a ministerial student.
Yeah.
And
So to do what though?
I want to be a pastor.
Okay.
My high school, we took a senior trip and we went to a place called the Wilds, and it was a youth camp.
Yeah.
And it was a great place, but they had preaching there, and they had an evangelist come in, and one night he was preaching on just surrendering ourselves to God, whatever that meant for you.
Yeah.
But being willing to do that. And so I did that, and with conversations with my dad, with my pastor, with my youth pastor, they thought, even knowing me as the rebel, that they saw something that maybe I should pursue that. And I had a desire to be in ministry, but not knowing what that looked like.
Yeah.
So back in the 90s, the early 90s, there were a lot less majors. And so you would study ministerial and you could be a missionary, you could be, and so a youth pastor.
It covered the range.
It did.
Yeah.
It was kind of all encompassing. So that's
Weird. They're kind of similar.
And yes, they are kind of similar. But going back to the reason that I left school at the beginning of my junior year, there was a conference in Chicago. A famous preacher was preaching at that conference, and I wanted to hear him. Well, our school didn't line up with him. And so I talked with our dean at the time, and I said, hey, I know the school doesn't agree with this guy.
Yeah.
But I really want to hear him. And he's like, no, I don't want you to go. And I said, well, can you explain to me the reasons why?
Yeah.
And he said, I just don't have time to explain to you. And I basically looked at the dean, and 2 months earlier, I said, hey, I will follow your rules. I will do what you asked me to do, whether I agree with them or not. And I basically looked at this man and said, well, me and my friend are going to go if you can't give me the time to tell me why.
Yeah.
And we went, and he was waiting for us when we got back. And
Yeah, how dare you go listen to a preacher talk?
asked me not to study there for a semester or two. So
Yeah. Yeah, reoccurring theme. So how long did it take for you to graduate then?
I packed 4 years of college into 18 years.
18 years.
Yeah.
Man, that is
So,
awesome.
So I started in 1990, and I got a bachelor's of theology in 2008.
You are so fast at stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. That's about the learning curve for me.
Hey,
Most people would
listen.
get that immediately. and
Listen,
it took
as
me
a guy with a brain injury, I'm like, look, I think I can make that one.
I'm here to give hope.
That's it.
In case there's any confusion,
That's right.
I want people to know you can do it.
Listen,
Yeah.
and if you set that bar to trip over, I'm your guy.
I am, yes.
All right. On that note, that's a perfect spot. Perfect spot to take a break. If you've not checked out Reach the Forgotten, we'll check into that website when we get back. Hit spiritualwarfareunit.com, and we will be right back. Taking a quick break from our podcast, I want to let you know about our life application program that we have like I said,
Oh,
this
for
is
churches
like
and
you and me
nonprofits
talking,
in the
except-
area that
except
are
that's
trying
hard.
to
Except that's
find
very
programming
bright.
that they can
And
use
that's,
in
again,
case
Dave's
the
high-quality
corona
reason
shuts
trying to
you
make me
down
look good,
and you're not able to
it's got a
get
tough
in.
job,
You
so
go to
it's gotta do.
spiritualwarfareunit.com.
Like I said.
Click on our episodes, and you can check out our programs for as little as $29.99 a month to make sure that we're still getting the word out to those people that need it. Now, back to the program.
All right, welcome back to the Warrior's Way. Our warrior this week is Wally Rose from the Lapeer County Jail and Reach the Forgotten. The website for that, for people if they want to check out, if they're interested in doing jail ministry, is what? ReachTheForgotten.com or something?
It's jailministry.org.
Oh, jailministry.org. So if someone wanted to go work in the jail or do like letters to inmates or something, or wanted to see what they could do, they would go to jailministry.org. Now, I believe people can donate time, money, or church services, right?
Correct.
Okay. So love the jail ministry, love what you're doing. It takes a special breed. I think it takes a rebel to work with rebels, like I swear.
I would totally agree with that. And, I have the sense when I'm in there, the only reason I'm not wearing orange is I didn't get caught doing whatever it was I was doing. And I'm not making that up, and I'm not saying that for effect for the guys.
Yeah.
I believe that.
No, I just tell them like one or two decisions,
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
The military was really good for me because I just struggled with rage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they focused that to a fine tip. But taken out of that environment,
Right.
where that would have gone,
Right.
Isaac may have been unsuccessful. So, all right. So we were just finishing with college in 18 years. So in between that 18 years, so so you got out. So how long were you? 1990 to how long? 2 years? 1 year?
I was in for 2 years.
Okay, so 92.
Yes.
So this puts you at 20.
Yep.
All right, so what's happening now?
So I come back from college, and my dad is the general manager at a John Deere dealership, not green but yellow, the industrial equipment.
Hold on a minute. There's a difference between, I thought they were all green and yellow.
There's John Deere Ag and there's John Deere Industrial. Industrial's yellow and agriculture's green. So
Hold on, that's a true thing?
So I worked at the industrial dealership, which had excavators and dozers and backhoes and wheel loaders, as opposed to tractors and manure spreaders and those kinds of things.
Manure spreaders.
Hey.
I thought that was a person.
Yeah, well, it is, but it's also an implement.
Yeah, listen, if you can tell me what the proper term is for that manure spreader so I can use that later on.
I cannot say it on air, but I can tell you that every time, because I ended up working at an ag dealer as a parts guy in college, and they never called it a manure spreader. So you just guess what they call it.
I will get the proper vernacular for that later. Okay, so you're working with the manure spreaders, and you're 20.
I still am working with the manure spreaders. I just want you to know that.
It's in this world, I don't think you can get away from.
Correct.
Correct. It's always a lovely rosebud. All right, so you go to John Deere Yellow.
Yes.
And something, I forget a lot of things. I'm never going to forget that one right there. Thank you. So you're John Deere Yellow, and you're working for your dad.
Yeah.
And how did that go?
It was great.
Really, working for your dad? A lot of people.
Working for my dad was he's a good dude.
Yeah.
He's a really good dude.
Awesome.
We didn't always see eye to eye, and so going through this phase of my life, when I got kicked out of high school, when I got kicked out of college, I thought I was the smartest guy I knew. I remember about a month before I got kicked out of college, just totally thinking how smart I was, which I realize is very foolish, but I did that. And I remember almost to the day I was 25 years old, and for the first time the thought occurred to me that my dad was the smartest person that I knew.
Wow.
And so that was revelational for me. That was really cool.
Sure, a step as a person.
Yeah,
right?
I don't remember the circumstances surrounding that, but I finally realized I'm not as smart as I think I am.
Yeah. I are smart.
Exactly. Look how it's served me so far.
Yeah, if we really knew everything back when we were teenagers, the amount of information we lost from that point to this point.
Shadow of a doubt.
Oh, dude, unbelievable.
So Dad put me in the dealership.
Yeah.
And you know what? I mowed around the equipment. I moved equipment around. I steam washed equipment for the mechanics. I became a parts guy and worked in the parts department.
Okay.
And my dad told me that was a life skill and it would serve you the rest of your life. And he was a little bit prophetic because that's how I paid my way through college as a married student when Jenny and I went back.
Okay.
Because I got a job at a John Deere
Well,
dealership.
how long? So did you meet her when you were there?
So we went to high school together, but she's a couple years behind me.
Yeah.
And when I got kicked out, I came back, and me and her brother were friends.
Yeah.
And we became really good friends because I thought his sister was cute.
Yeah.
And he knows that today. No, I'm not letting the cat out of the bag there.
Yeah.
But anyway,
You used him. He was like a
100% good. He's a good dude, but 100%.
Yeah, I really like him. But your sister,
She
bro.
is cute, man. So anyway,
So when did you like officially start like dating her?
So I was kicked out of college in April.
So you're 22.
22.
Yeah.
No, I was 21 when I got kicked out of college because I got married at 22, and that was the following year.
Okay, so you went right back, and you
did.
went right back, and we're buddies, and then saw
Yes,
her. Okay.
yes, went right back.
So how long did you like date?
We dated for a year and a week exactly.
Year and a week.
Year and a week,
You went
53
from
weeks.
Dating to marriage in a year and a week.
We did.
Outstanding.
And she was 19 when we got married. I was 22, she was 19. Looking back, we would have waited till we were a little bit older because we were kids. But you know,
Were ya?
We were in love, so
You
we
were,
got
yeah.
married. We got married.
Yeah, well, you know, puppy love is real puppy, and both my daughters married their high school sweethearts, and they're good dudes, man. I really like my son-in-laws. I
love it.
They're good human beings. So all right, so you're getting married, and so you're working at the yellow section
That's right.
of John Deere, and you're making obviously decent money. Then, okay, so like, how did you transfer from like that to ministry? Like you were just living life and having kids and doing all that. Like you have kids, right?
Yeah, we have 4 kids.
You like practicing,
but we didn't then. Yeah,
Okay.
we didn't then. So to try to make it short.
I'll just cut you off. Don't worry.
Okay, I eventually went to work. A Bobcat dealership up in Saginaw hired me to be their parts manager.
Okay.
And so I went up to Saginaw, and this was unrelated to my dad's company. And I really had this, it was from the Lord, to finish college, to go back and to finish. And so I talked to Jenny, and we went back as married students. And the other part of that is I had to make a few things right. Like I had to apologize to the dean of students. I was an idiot to him.
He's still there.
He was then.
Yeah.
This is only a couple years later.
Okay.
But anyway, I knew that the Lord wanted me to make that right. And one of the things he's helped me with in my life is I've burnt bridges and hurt people and been an idiot.
Yeah.
But he has somehow, some way through time and pressure gotten a hold of my heart to where at least I'll go back and say I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
And for many people, that's been sufficient. For some, it hasn't. It's ruined relationships. But
Yeah,
for some, it's been okay. Anyway, we go back, and we lived in Wisconsin for about 3 years. But if you can believe this, I still didn't finish my degree. We come back to Michigan because this is where we're both from. She's a Swartz Creek girl. I'm a Flushing kid.
Yeah.
We buy a house in Flint. We go to my old church, and we began to serve as a couple. Bus ministry mainly, Sunday school, super church. She's in the choir. I become a deacon. All these different things.
You're just doing the work, right? Just life.
Doing the work, but here's the deal. Having this gnawing that God had called me to be a pastor.
Wow, okay.
And let me just say this. You know, the Bible says if a man desires the office of a bishop, he desires a good work.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're foolish if you just want to be a pastor because it is a razor's edge. It is.
Dude.
you get it.
Dude.
And so I had this desire, and it wasn't so that I could have the spotlight. I didn't mind the spotlight, and that might be a shortcoming, but that wasn't the reason.
Yeah.
God had put this desire in my heart. And so I was filling it with all these good ministries.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. And finally, it was like the Lord in personal conversation and just spending devotional time with him was like, Wally, this isn't what I've called you to.
Yeah.
And the problem was I was terrified to be in front of people. And so I couldn't understand why God wanted me to be a pastor.
I can't understand why God wants to do things that scare you.
Yes. Public speaking, man. Like, what? You can't mean me.
Yeah, right.
But he did. And eventually we had this faith-based addictions ministry that was going to start up in our church. And my pastor had tabbed me to be the director of that. And this was life-changing for me for so many reasons. But it was going to require me to give up these other ministries.
Yeah, as a full-time gig.
He knew the time constraints.
Yeah.
And after 1 year, eventually, I went on staff as a full-time staff member because of the size of this thing. But
you're talking about RU. Right?
I am, Reformers Unanimous.
Man, that's a great program.
It is, and it's not just great for addicts, it's great for people who
It's great for regular people.
Correct.
Yeah, for sure.
It was life-changing for me.
Yeah.
Literally, because for the first time in my life, I developed a relationship with God.
All right. So what's the years of this? Like, where are you at?
So Jenny and I went back to college 93, 94, 95, 96, 97. We moved back to Flint.
Now, why didn't you finish?
98. Because I'm slow. We had a child, and we had bills, and I couldn't go to school. Yeah, I couldn't go to school full time.
All right, well, you didn't answer the question. It was a good question. All right, so then you leave Wisconsin, which has great cheese, as you said.
It does.
And it's freezing.
And
you came back to Michigan?
Yep.
Now, did you work with your dad, or did you work with a Bobcat company? Like, what was happening at that point?
No, I went to work for an equipment rental company in Flint.
Okay.
And worked there for 2 years, and then became a salesman with another equipment rental company out of Wixom.
Okay.
And this is 99, 2000. We were printing money. I mean, times were good.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And then my pastor, I preached on a Wednesday night, and the Lord laid on my pastor's heart, hey, this is the guy you want to head up this, direct this ministry. And I would argue with both the Lord and my pastor on that.
Yeah, right.
But at any rate, he called us into his office, said, hey, this is what we want you to do.
Yeah.
And
you know what's super funny, man, is you have this like cycle of I'm going to do it, and then life got in the way, and then I'm going to do it, and then life got in the way, and not like I'm going to do it, and then like you keep going in this circle. It's so great to know it's not just me, bro.
Ever read the book of Judges? They sinned, slavery, the Lord redeemed, and now we're back on the path again. Right. It's a vicious circle over and over.
Yeah, that's super funny. So like your 2000s is going well. So from 2000. How did you get from, so you're doing RU in the ministry, you got 2000, and then you said 2008 you got your degree finally?
Yeah.
So how did that 8 years kind of run,
So
you're doing RU, which is a great program, you're director.
And so that thing exploded because Flint is needy. We have a lot of drug use in Flint. And
what?
So we were picking people. Yeah, exactly.
You what?
We were picking people up. We were busing people in.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of drive-ins. And so every Friday night, we got to the point where we averaged over 200 people. And I don't say that for numbers' sake. I say that because
people that needed help.
People were needy.
Yeah.
But this is no joke. There were multiple days that my phone, I was still working as a salesman down in the Detroit area. I received 100 phone calls a day for many days. And that was because I had a job and because I was the director of this ministry.
That's nuts, man.
After 1 year, my pastor came to me and said, hey, I want you to quit your job. I want you to come on staff. But one of the stipulations was that I got my degree. He's like, I want you to finish your degree to be on staff.
Yeah.
And so he suggested a school, turned out to be Southern Indiana Baptist College, where I could finish my studies online, which wasn't, this was 2006, and since I didn't go full time, I did 6, 7, and 8, and finished my degree.
Yeah, and the market's getting ready to take a major.
You know what?
The
Lord took me out a year before the market crashed, as far as sales go.
No kidding.
He did. It was really cool.
Wow, man, that's cool. Well, this is a perfect time to take a break. Real quick before we come to break, tell us about jailministry.org. What do you think best thing is for people to get a hold of those guys, Reach the Forgotten?
So if you go to jailministry.org, up in the upper right-hand corner, if I'm looking at it, it says menu. Click on that thing, and it'll basically give you little tiles to answer most of your questions. And that's anywhere from volunteering, filling out a one-page application, to giving information what our mission is, what our purpose is, how you can become involved if you'd like to donate, if you'd like to actually volunteer your time. It answers most of those, and eventually it's going to put you in contact with me.
Yeah, perfect. All right, on that note, you check that out, jailministry.org. Make sure, if you need help, to go to spiritualwarfareunit.com. Like, share, and subscribe on YouTube at Spiritual Warfare Unit. We will be right back.
I'm really impressed with the teachings that Isaac has been bringing to us, as this is all based from Proverbs.
I like it because it's simple, and it doesn't matter who you are. It's very easy to understand and apply to your life.
It points out, my bad parts, and, but it's showing me how to do the good parts. And, I'm trying to apply that and, make a better life for myself, because I'm tired of where I've been.
It's impacted a lot of the guys as they continue to talk and ask questions after the meetings, as they speak to one another regarding the meeting and the messages and the topics that are being brought up, which are down-to-earth topics of situations and things that we live with on a day-to-day basis.
He takes the Bible and he breaks it down into simple terms and where you can understand. And like I said before, sometimes a lot of churches, even the Salvation Army, sometimes we start using these big words that people don't understand, like even saying someone got saved. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean when you say someone got saved? And it's accepting Jesus into your heart. So it's like words like that we use that people don't understand.
It's just very interesting how he points out, the different things of, the sin part, and then he comes back with the, how to make it better, and he just points it out. It's there. I didn't know all this stuff was in there, but now that he's pointing it out, it's like, wow, I guess if you really dig into the Bible, you find these things.
This is a daily moral standards that we can live by, that the teachings are coming from. And honestly, we can take verse by verse as what he's done, and pretty much he's done the hard work for us and now laying it out so that we have an easier understanding.
There's some people who don't like to be in Bible classes, but this one seems to get their attention.
That's awesome.
All right. Welcome back to the Warriors Way. Our warrior this week is Wally Rose from the Lapeer County Jail with Reach the Forgotten. Thank you for showing us where to go on the website. I know with ours, I always tell people to click the lines.
Yeah.
The little square lines.
Right.
Like what? That's a professional term.
Square lines.
Yeah, right. The square lines. So
that's what I thought they were called. So it is.
Weird. So here we are in our gem session. And our gem session is funny stories that have happened to you during your path that you find hilarious, that are either funny to you or funny at you, either way. So do you have any funny stories for us that happened during this road that you were kind of going on to get to your degree in 2008?
I have so many funny stories.
Clean.
Yeah. I'll give you a few in ministry. So when I was the director at Reformers Unanimous, one of the sad parts is people overdosed and died.
Right.
And I did a lot of funerals. Yeah. And I was kind of thrust into that role. I've done way more funerals than weddings, even though I pastored for 9 years.
Yeah.
And so at one of these funerals, it was in Flint, and it was a lady, and we had shut the doors, and we began the funeral. And in this particular funeral home, I was up like 6-7 feet, like above the casket. The platform was high. And I read the scriptures, and we opened in prayer, and all of a sudden, the double doors flew open like bang. And this couple starts walking down the aisle, and they're having a conversation. I mean, right in the middle
of the service.
Right in the middle of the funeral service. And they walk right to the casket. So they're probably 4 feet from me, but I'm above them because I'm on that platform. And they start talking about the deceased. I'm out loud. Everybody can hear this. It's not a huge room. There's probably 40 people in there.
Yeah.
And
you're like, what are you doing?
And it was like they were oblivious. Like it was still, visitation. And finally I looked at them, and I had no malice. And I said, hey, you know what? When you guys are done, I'll kick back up, but I'm going to go sit down. So I went and sat down, and they probably stayed at the casket. It felt like 15 minutes, but it was probably 3 or 4.
Shut
And then they sat
you.
down, and I kind of looked at them, and then we went back with the funeral.
Listen, is it all right if I finish up here?
Yeah,
You
so
just,
that was that. If you got time, I'll give you one more quick one.
Yeah. What do you got?
So over the course of time, the Lord just worked in my heart about being a pastor. Like I was the director and I was an associate pastor, but of being a lead pastor. And so I talked to my pastor about it and took counsel, and the Lord answered that call and put my family over at Hadley Community Church, which is Southern Lapeer.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing you didn't do as an assistant very much is like the Lord's Supper, communion.
Yeah.
I've been through it thousands of times because I grew up in the church, but I had never kind of let it.
Yeah.
And either the first or second time I did it. Now, there's an order in the Word of God, 1 Corinthians 11.
Yeah.
It's bread first, and then
You actually read it and then you just do
the
it.
juice. I handed out the juice first. And it's a small thing, and it was an innocent mistake, but boy, did that create a buzz storm. We talked about that for years.
Here's the thing. The fact that creates a buzzstorm is the stupid part about that.
I agree with you. But
I cannot believe that you would put the juice in front of the bread.
so for whatever reason, though, I didn't read the passage before. I was going to read the passage while and during, and so I had the deacon stand up, and we did the juice first, and then I opened my Bible to 1 Corinthians 11, and clearly his body, the bread, is first, and I'm like, what have I done? And I'm having this internal dialogue standing in front of people.
Dude, that is why I love those moments where you're like, well, we're going to move on here. And I appreciate, like, that Southern accent just comes out like, I have dropped the horse. Like,
Dude.
So you were talking about funeral things, and I have a buddy of mine that transports bodies
Oh, yeah.
back and forth. And I was like, dude, you got any funny stories? He's like, matter of fact. He was like, I had to travel down. They called me like 11 o'clock at night. And he said, I had to travel down in the middle of Nowheresville and pick up this body and come back with the body. And he said, it's rainy and it's thundering and it's storming. He's like, go in. He's like, I get out. And I'm banging on the door. No one's there. Had to call, had to wait. Finally gets the body. And he says, I don't know if you know this or not. He said, but dead bodies become gassy. And I was like, okay. And I'm thinking, punchline here, right?
Yeah.
So my mind is going in one direction, right? And I'm thinking the smell, right? That's where my mind's going. The smell of that gas, the dead body, it's got to stink, right? No. So he's apparently when they put the casket or whatever they hold the body in, they have these straps.
Yeah.
And if you hit the brakes real hard, it moves, right? Mm-hmm. Well, he was coming back and he had this person cut him off, and it was thunder and stormy, and he hit, and when he hit, the casket bumps the back of the seat, and he's like, oh, okay, it's just a casket, and then 2 seconds later, he feels this thing, like massaging his shoulder. He's like, I was doing 60 miles an hour. He's like, I hammered the brakes, pulled over to the side of the road, jump out of the car, looking all around. He's like, there's nothing. There is nothing. He was like, but the gas had put weight on the thing and moved it forward, and it was released. And while he had been waiting to get the body, a black cat had jumped into the vehicle and had walked across his shoulders, and he thought the dead guy was massaging him. I was like, listen, it wasn't brown, it wasn't gray, it was black.
Did he quit his job, or did he stay?
It was a couple months, man.
Wow.
He was like, all right, that's enough. Roll him back up. We're good.
That's good.
Oh, man. I was just told him, I said, listen, I couldn't do that job. Like, God bless those people that do that job. But like
Mortuary science. I have a good friend who does it.
Right.
Yep.
And please use the word science, because it's weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you hear the stories about them sitting up and all that crazy stuff they're talking about,
Yep.
And I just look. So, anyways, those are some good stories. So we'll put those up on our gem session on our when you go to our YouTube channel. You can check that out. They may even make a TV show. We'll have to see. And so getting back, you had gone to 2008 to finish your degree. Now, have you had all your kids at this point?
Yep.
You said you had 4.
Yeah.
Right.
97, 98, 02, and 05.
Okay. So you were doing the RU program directory, and then you did that for like 10 years or something, right?
Right on 9.
Right in 9 years.
Yep.
Okay. And then what happened from that point? Because you're how old at this point? When you're getting ready to go to?
Late 30s.
Okay.
So I was 39 or 40 when we went to Hadley.
So your constructive years in the ministry was the RU.
100%.
Okay.
It totally formed me.
That's why you liked the outreach so much. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense.
It totally formed me. And over the course of time, talking with staff and other people, the Lord had put that desire on our heart. And here's the thing. I've done this twice now, and conventional wisdom says don't quit a job unless you
Have another job.
have another job.
That's not what Wally does, man.
Well, I didn't have anything lined up, but I knew the Lord was working on me
Yeah.
to be a lead pastor. And I was sharing that with my pastor and with others. And finally, I just wasn't being obedient. I was not obeying the Lord, and I was miserable. My wife finally said, please just say yes. Just the Lord will take care of us. And so,
Yeah.
so we didn't know what to do. I didn't know how ministry worked. And in a secular job, you give a 2 weeks notice.
Yeah.
So I was talking to my pastor. I'm like, look, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I got to go.
Yeah.
Nothing bad, but I got to go. I got to
Yeah.
do this. And so I gave a 2 weeks notice, and they great send off party. Everything was great.
Yeah.
But I woke up that Monday, nothing.
Yeah.
I started to look. What do you do?
Yeah.
So on that Tuesday, Hadley Community Church called me and said, hey, we need somebody to fill our pulpit.
Shut up.
We're without
2
a
days
pastor."
later?
2 days later. And so this is good.
Yeah.
And-
No, is it?
No, it gets better. It gets better. So I said, yeah, I'll fill your pulpit. So I met with 2 of their fellas, and they kind of vetted me theologically in those things.
Yeah.
And I filled the pulpit. And that first Sunday, they said, hey, would you consider praying about being our pastor? And I said, nope. I want to be in a city ministry. I want nitty gritty. I want right where I was at. This is farm country. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And the place is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we ended up living there. But that's not my temperament.
Yeah.
And so we go, and then they have us again, and they have us again. And
Will you have us? I need a job. No, I won't do
so
it.
finally, after 7 weeks, they're like, you have to pray about it. So Jenny and I agreed
Yeah.
to pray about it. Here's the story. I was out of a job for 8 weeks, and almost to the penny for that 8 weeks, the Lord provided 9 weeks of pay.
Okay.
Just totally took care of us. We said yes, and then we were there for another 9 years in Hadley.
Wow.
Great things happened. It was wonderful. I learned so much, and I learned about ministering to a different group of people, because people are different.
Yeah.
You go to Hadley for a purpose.
Yeah.
You're leaving the nitty gritty and the grind of the
Right.
city. Most people in Hadley are from Pontiac.
Right.
And so I had to learn how to slow down a little bit and what a different style or type of ministry was. Lord began to work on my heart again, and I didn't know what we were going to do or how we were going to do it, but almost the same. I let the fellas know in October, hey, I don't have anything lined up, but I know that my time here is done.
Yeah.
And so January of 2021 was the last Sunday in January was my last day.
Yeah.
And I resigned.
So this is what year?
This is
2021?
2021.
All right. And then you didn't have anything again.
I didn't.
Dude, you got this cycle. I like
No,
that.
it's dumb, but it's the way it's worked out. I would not suggest it.
So how long were you out before
So the
Reach the Forgotten got a hold of you?
The odd part again is I had served since 2004 because of Reformers. I had served with, at that time, Forgotten Man in Genesee County.
Yeah.
We could come up and do our thing. And so we did that. And so when I came to Lapeer, I got in contact with Scott Cox, who was the chaplain at the Lapeer County Jail.
Yeah.
And I began to preach and go in and visit.
Yeah.
He called me 2 days later, just like before, and said, hey, I'm thinking about retiring, and the Lord's laid you on my heart. I heard you resign the pastorate. And I said, I did. And so that ball started rolling, and at the end of March, I became the lead chaplain for Reach the Forgotten. It was still Forgotten Man, but for Reach the Forgotten in Lapeer County.
Yeah, well, you got to go through brand change to keep with the times.
Like,
Man.
there you go.
And
There you go.
they are hip with the times.
It's so everybody knows the ladies aren't forgotten.
that the ladies
That's right.
are not forgotten.
That's
That's
right.
absolutely true. It's funny how many people actually thought that, though. It's kind of
That's-
crazy.
That was kind of the impetus for the name change.
Yeah, I know. That was my whole thing, too. So when I was going through it, I was like I'm going to run something right to the end of the road. Like, I'm going to run the wheels and the engine right off that sucker, right?
Right.
Because I don't want to miss and say I did something. Like, so I'm the type of person you got to pull me off something, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, yeah, I'm out. Like I don't work that way at all. I'm running that sucker.
That's totally that's how I'm wired. Evidently.
Yeah. And that's just how I'm wired. And I can be the same thing, bored out of my mind, not want to be there, and then like God's got to yank me off of that. And luckily, He brings people in your life to do that, right? And it's a struggle for them,
Without a doubt.
you know. And my heart goes out to them because they're put in this position. And my personality is just that way. I don't mean to. I don't want to leave something undone.
Got it.
And just because you feel like it's done doesn't mean it is done.
Right.
You know. And so when God turned that off, it was like you said, it was like, boom, and this direction's going, and everything's cool, and it was like, you got to be kidding me, right?
Get it.
And you sit there and you look at this, and you're like, that can't be legit. You know, that's not how this works. And it's like, yeah, you know that faith thing you were talking about? You don't believe in something not heard and seen, or some book I read about rules and stuff. But then when you're living that, and you're like, yeah, so this is what happened. People won't even believe what you're saying. You're like,
Right.
come on, man. Like really? Like that's what happened?
I would like to get to the point where my everyday experience is that, though. Like, I have these big moments.
Yeah.
But it's even tougher in the day by day to live by faith.
Yeah.
We even have a hard time defining it. So, but
Yeah,
yes,
by
that's it.
as what it is. So your whole process of where you started as Flushing, you were actually a rebel and against authority and fighting the man. I would kind of say you were that guy, right?
I was.
You definitely, and God took that personality type.
I will even say this. Even in high school, when I was back at Flushing, here I'm Lily White. I'm living in a white community in Flushing, and for some reason, without really knowing who Malcolm X was, I wore his hat.
That was
everywhere.
your
I had
guy.
the X hat, and everybody thought that was the funniest thing. And I don't even know why I did it, but that's who I was.
Yeah.
You know, and so there you have it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've always, like, after my car accident, like, you get this list of things that people say you can't do.
Yeah.
And the key word for me is impossible. It's impossible. Like, it's impossible to drive. It's impossible to work. I even had a doctor tell me you will not be a productive person in society. That is a low bar. You know what I'm saying?
Did you tell him you hadn't been productive up to that point?
I was
anyway,
like,
so
listen,
it didn't matter?
like you're just calling it how you see it, and I've been riding that road for a while.
I'm gonna get off that train.
Yeah, but no, that's my appeal to these guys because, like, we all screw up, right?
Yeah.
Like, we all make mistakes, and then some of them are just worse than others. And if you can look at yourself and go, I did that. You know, my favorite thing in jail is like, yeah, I caught a case. I'm like, yeah, you were running away, but it caught you. You tried everything you could do.
That's right.
And but saying, listen, I'm going to give you a shot, right?
Yeah.
Like, and when we first started, there was no, like, when I asked the old chaplain, I was like, what's the function for our guys when they get out? Like, where do we send them? And he's like, oh, we give them a Bible and tell them to go to the first church they see. And I'm like, that's funny. Like what is it?
Right.
And he looked
He
at
was
me
serious.
like I was stupid.
Right.
And I was like, that's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my whole life, right? And it was actually an inmate that was like, dude, you say you love us, but when we get out of here, we don't see you again. And I was like, dang. And I can't go, well, listen, that's not my ministry,
Right.
which was the answer. But it's like, you know these people, right? So that's how God, he actually used that guy. He was a double murder guy. And he was like, I'm going to put this on your heart to start doing the outreach,
Yeah.
because these people are doing it anyways, right?
Yep.
That's how all this idea came about. You guys are still doing the work, but you're too busy to talk to the people that are doing the food, and the food people are too busy to talk to the housing people, and the housing people are too busy to talk to the program people because everybody's busy.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, you just need a platform to go tell people what you're doing. Well, shoot, I can do that, right? And then that's how God created this. And it was like, oh, Isaac, you're so smart. And I'm like, yeah, am I? You know, am I?
Just connected dots.
You know, I'll tell you one of the things that cured me, because you know how you're like, as a young kid, you're like, I'm the smartest person I've ever seen, dude. And this is another funny story. So, like, once you get diagnosed with a brain injury, the first thing, do you know the first test you have to take after that? IQ test, right?
Nice.
It's not nice, bro. It's not nice. It's 3 days of hell, and you're going through the 600 bubbles, right? And my brain injury is eye injury. So these things are all, in my brain injury, everything moves like this.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm trying to read, and I'm like, you know, like this. right? And so I'm getting to it. Took me forever, right? It's like, okay, this next section is 660 questions, and you're like, oh, you know. So you get done. It's 2 days of testing. So my buddy had come up from Cincinnati, and he's like, oh, I'll drive you. And I wasn't feeling good. My wife went. And he gets on this dry eraser board, and he sits in there, and there's like 3 other doctors. And I'm like, this is not good, right? And so he sits me in there, and he draws this square, right? He's like, this is the graph for normal people. And I'm like, here it comes, right? He's like, you are here. And so I just shut off everything. I don't even hear the rest of the whole thing, right? Because I'm like, oh, my God, I'm an idiot. Blah, blah, blah. And he went on for 30 minutes. I'm just not listening because I'm just like, this is horrible information, right? Sure. And so he gets done and he's like, Mr. Walsh, what do you think of that? I'm like, basically, you just told me I'm Forrest Gump and I'm a retard and I'm not going to be able to do anything for the rest of my life. He's like, well, not exactly. I was like, but more or less, right? And he was like, well, you know, you're going to struggle. And I was like, well, what's the score, right? So they took my military score, and I average is 100, right? That's 100 IQ. I scored like 125 in the military, right? Yeah. The retarded number, like retarded as in versus normal, not retarded, right, is 70. I scored a 77. So I looked this up one time just to see how to raise your lawyer score by a couple points. Do you know that a rock that is rolling down a hill has an IQ of 3? Right? Wow. And this is part of my life. So if God uses that guy, you're set. Yeah, like you're good, man. Right?
There is hope.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that note, we're going to take our third break. If you have not gone out and checked out jailministry.org to find out our good people to see what they're doing, please hit that. Please go to YouTube, like, share, and subscribe on Spiritual Warfare Unit, and we will be right back.
I was an addict for 6 years. I was deeply into heroin and addiction. 2014, a lot of events happened for me. I had lost my sister. My dad was just diagnosed with cancer. I was just kind of in this headspace of being in a mess as it was, and then I was introduced to heroin. I kept it pretty well hidden there in the beginning. A lot of people didn't know that I was using just because I went about my everyday life the same way anybody else would. But what they didn't know behind the scenes is I was using 10 times a day. I'm living out of what I consider a trap house at this point. There's no windows, there's no doors, there's no place to stay warm. I had no other way of making money. I was doing things that weren't okay to me. I started prostituting. I was stealing from my loved ones. I was taking my dad's cancer prescriptions, and I would take them and I would sell them. I couldn't even contact my daughter in December of that year to tell her Merry Christmas or send her gifts. And it just got to a point where I knew, like, I'm either going to get clean or I might as well start planning my own funeral. So for me, it wasn't even just that I needed to stop. My life over the course of 6 years fell apart.
So I met Sarah in 2019. We had a program I was working with law enforcement officers, and I got the call that they had somebody, so there I went to meet Sarah.
Here's just this happy-go-lucky guy just, oh my God, here's treatment. Here's what you can do. You can change your life around. I'm just kind of sitting there like, oh, okay, what did I get myself into? Like, maybe sitting in a cell by myself might have been a better idea, because at least I don't have to listen to all this.
Whenever I see somebody who's willing to go to treatment to try and help with their issue, it's something that I don't make that judgment. I always just try and provide the hope, the encouragement, and the motivation to go to treatment, and then hope that it works for them, hope they engage, hope that it's the point of life that they're in, that they're ready to make that change.
It was a huge wake-up call for me. when I'm watching all these people that I used to hang out with, including my husband, get clean before I did. And just watching their lives change so drastically and them becoming so much happier. And I just sat there in this endless abyss of a mess that I caused myself, but I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know how to stay clean. I didn't know how to live my life without substances because I had done it for so long.
With UCAN and our relationships we can actually get people into multiple treatment facilities. So depending on age, gender, the drug of choice, things of that nature, there's certain facilities that maybe have a little bit more of a success rate with certain populations. So we kind of talk through that and then try and place them where we feel is an optimal place to succeed.
My husband and I finally got a place together, and life has pretty much been good ever since, but like the key role of it for me was staying in contact with people.
We can't go in and drive in and grab somebody and just pull them out like they're drowning. It's a decision they have to make, and it's a commitment they have to make, and then they have to be diligent, determined, dedicated to find sobriety.
So my husband has 2 years clean, and I have 22 months clean. I will have 2 years clean on December 21st of this year. Just last month in October, we went back to court. Everything's officially terminated. She's back home with us for good.
Yeah, so UCAN is that conduit. A lot of times people don't know when to or how to or where to go to start looking for services. So we try and promote UCAN as being the starting point for people to begin the road to navigating recovery.
It is more than possible to change your life around.
So this program that we have allows law enforcement that if they have somebody that they feel could use the opportunity to try and get treatment instead of incarceration, that they would reach out and we could handle it for them.
Recovery is possible, and there is hope.
All right, welcome back to the Warrior's Way. Our warrior this week is Wally Rose from the Lapeer jail, and we were just finishing up with your little life story there. It was very interesting, using a rebel to help teach rebels. I like that. Yeah. And so what does Reach the Forgotten got going on in Lapeer County?
Well, we have a lot going on, actually. So we go into our county jail, and we are there at the request, the invitation of our sheriff. Mm-hmm. And I'm under the auspices of our lieutenants and our sergeants there. Mm-hmm. And so we're a part of the programming. In a local jail, I'm the lead chaplain at two. I have Lapeer County, I have St. Clair County, mm-hmm. and they're vastly different. One is a smaller, small town local jail, and the other one is a much larger local jail, federal jail, mm-hmm. and ICE detention center all in one. Wow. But they both have programming directors, and Reach the Forgotten comes along as, at least at these two jails, as the spiritual component of the overall programming. And programming at these jails includes GED, so scholastics, it includes medical, it includes community mental health, and then various programs that come in, your Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, those types of things.
So you guys do you have like a jail reentry program where people getting out, or they have access to certain things?
We do. It's not the stated goal. Now,
obviously,
I'm not trying to make the organization I'm with look bad. That's not it. We have very robust ministry inside of jail. We're in 35 counties. Our stated goal is that every incarcerated person in the state of Michigan hears the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we carry that out through Christ-centered, Bible-based, chaplain-led, volunteer ministry that goes on in jail.
Yeah.
And so at Lapeer County, inside of the jail, we're part of the scheduling. We had church service last night. It was wonderful. We have one-on-ones. We have all these things. But as I'm in the jail, I'm realizing, just like you did, that, hey, when this guy gets out, who's picking him up?
Yeah.
Where's he going? What's going on? And so what we began to develop is putting them in contact. Number one, everybody's getting my card, all the fellas. Mm-hmm. And, hey, call me. And so that's worked out in a good way because I'm doing breakfast, I'm doing lunch. We have small groups with some guys that are getting out. And trying to get them hooked up with good churches, which has always been God's local support group.
Yep.
And then letting them know about the UCANs, letting them know about programs or people in town that will
Yeah.
have their back, that will help them as they're trying to get back on their feet.
Yeah, because if you haven't seen the show before, the whole function of what we do is to get help to those guys that are what we call community reentry. So if you're going through drug rehabilitation, alcohol, or drug rehabilitation, or you're coming out of county or prison, and you need help re-entering into the community, so you need housing or clothes or
Yep.
food or baby formula or even I got a guy that's got a school for low income, no income families. That's a school. It's called Richfield Academy, and if you got a kid that needs medical attention, they got a U of M medical facility. If they're under 15, you just bring them.
Awesome.
You just bring them, and they'll help you out for free. And I was like, dude, what do I got to do to tell people this? He's like, just tell them. He's like, I don't care. I was like, cool. And so, like, because we're all struggling with something, so even if your guys are in jail and they need someone that can help, letting those guys know, go to spiritualwarfareunit.com, click on Scuds is it struggling?
Yes, there
Just
you
like
go.
the word I'm trying to find is struggling. Just to click on struggling, and then they can help their families while they're in jail. And then the programs and setups outside of there, because you guys, I actually did the math on the hours in that.
Yeah.
It's like 70 hours between the programming, the scheduling, the management, and then the banquet training and outreach stuff. It's like 70 hours. It's not possible to do that work. And that's when God had put on my heart, this is direction. He opened that door. Like, I didn't do that.
Right, right.
You know, I'm not smart enough, clearly. I'm Jersey 77. So, you know what I mean? And so being able to partner and have that there for you so you don't have to think about it, that was the function.
Yep.
And that was the goal. And the beauty of it was, they said, well, Isaac's too hard. It's impossible. Well, it's impossible if you don't have podcasts. It's impossible if you are doing another full-time job. Absolutely.
Yep.
But if you're not, and you're just hanging out with your buddies and talking about,
It can be
you know,
done.
it can be done. So I look forward to that partnership there. Is there anything about jail ministry that you would caution anybody about, or tell them it might be, or how they know if it was their or not their ministry? Anything off the top of your head? Because I know for me, I went in there giving someone who had no hope. For me, I was like, dude, that's my thing right there.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I think the Lord gifts us for different types of ministries.
Yeah.
You know, like I happen to know you're probably not going to work in our kids department, and that's okay.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
And
That's a hard no.
But you can sit across the table from a fellow who's allegedly a double murderer and minister to that guy and have a conversation. Not everybody can do that. So number one, you got to know yourself.
Yeah.
But we go through training, and I let people know, and I observe them, and I just want people that will love other people and don't take themselves too seriously and recognize, but for the grace of God, there go I.
Perfect. Well, on that note, Wally, thank you so much for coming in, buddy. And we will see you soon on the outside. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye, you have a nonprofit in your area that's doing a lot of work that people should know about? Feel free to contact Spiritual Warfare Unit at 810-715-9319, and we would love to have them on to see what good they're doing in the community and find out their story. Thank you so much.
Spent so much time believing the lies. I knew I wasn't meant to live this way. But my walls came down when your love shone through. Now my life will never be the same. You love me too much to let me stay this way. Jesus, there's freedom in your name. You break every chain, oh Lord. 'Cause you are above every name, Jesus. Oh, you set me free. Now I live my life, singing songs of praise, proclaiming everything you've done for me. 'Cause my walls came down when your love shone through. And now my life will never be the same. 'Cause you love me too much to let me stay this way.